I was trained as a biochemist and biophysicist, and so I have ended up getting a PhD in biochemistry and biophysics, doing novel drug design. But what really inspired me was that you could take that same level of kind of deep scientific rigor, but also the magic of like new science and new
Right.
amazing technologies, and you could apply them anywhere. Like I was classically trained to look for small molecule drugs. So it's hard for us to rewind over 10 years ago, but that's where the field was of technology. And what got
Right.
us interested is I was working on a couple other neurological device companies at the time. And I think what really was the key inspiration was, could we merge these two fields? Because now you fast forward to 2023, 2024, and there's now like dozens of digital therapeutic companies out there. There were none in 2010, 2011. So there was really nothing that was a template for what does it look like to build a therapeutic that's delivered in an app or through your phone. We felt like within the neurology and psychiatry fields, one of the biggest issues was that cognitive functioning, so how well you're paying attention or processing information, how well the brain's working on like a very minute by minute basis, or frankly, millisecond by millisecond basis, that's actually what had not been solved in neurology medicine, right? And you get in your first couple sessions, you get a focus score, and then you get a trajectory that says, if you keep playing, here's the confidence interval of how much you'll improve that. When I say it's a couple years in the making, this really demonstrates the power of digital treatment.
Eddie Martucci, a trailblazer in digital therapeutics and co-founder of Akili, is joining me today. With a bold vision of transforming medicine, Eddie has played a pivotal role in developing a groundbreaking video game treatment for ADHD. Akili is revolutionizing the way we develop and experience medicine. With an inventive blend of neuroscience, creativity, and cutting-edge video game development, Akili is boldly challenging the status quo of traditional medicine. Their therapeutics, EndeavorRx and EndeavorOTC, are the first of their kind treatments for children and adults with ADHD, delivered through an immersive video game experience. In this episode, we will dive into Eddie's journey, the evolution of Akili, and the amazing work they're doing to transform healthcare delivery through video games. Thank you for joining us today, Eddie. How are you?
Awesome. Thanks, Bryce. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you joining us and taking the time to kind of share your story with us. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background, Eddie, and how did you kind of your experience in pharmacology and molecular biophysics, and kind of your very impressive background? Kind of where did you get started?
Sure, sure. Yeah. If you go all the way back, I was in a, healthcare family. So my parents owned a independent pharmacy in Connecticut. Apologies for my dog there. Um, so I worked in a pharmacy starting at like 12 years old, and so I got to see the delivery of medicine. I went to college, and I really was fascinated with biochemistry and biology. So I was a biochem major. And really, where I was started to take my career after college, I went to grad school at Yale, and I was trained as a biochemist and biophysicist. And so I have ended up getting a PhD in biochemistry and biophysics, doing novel drug design. But what really inspired me was that you could take that same level of kind of deep scientific rigor, but also the magic of like new science and new
Right.
amazing technologies, and you could apply them anywhere. Like I was classically trained to look for small molecule drugs, and I still love that field very much. It's close to my heart. But I got to meet entrepreneurs and people from different walks of life, and what I found was that almost everything that was not a drug per se was thought of as like less than medicine. And so that was always in my head, is like, could we take the same level of deep science into all these other fields? And so I think that's the only thread of my background to what I do today, that probably is connected there.
Well, I know when you co-founded Akili with obviously with a very bold vision. Could you share a little bit more about the inspiration and
Sure.
what kind of made you want to be that challenge to the status quo, and kind of go the route of delivering medicine through a video game?
Sure. So myself and my co-founders, I was at Pure Tech Health at the time, which is a biotech company and firm here in Boston. And at the time, a group of us were looking at essentially how can we create new therapeutics out of cutting edge science and technology. And I think in the case of Akili, what captured our imagination was that, if you think around 2009 to 2010, when I really started looking at this with a team, it's when the technology platforms in our pocket started to do things a lot more than just communication, right? And so what really captured us was, okay, you can now bank on your phone. You can, do your finances. You can obviously communicate. People started playing games, and there were like incredibly immersive games, so entertainment. So it's hard for us to rewind over 10 years ago, but that's where the field was of technology. And what got us interested is I was working on a couple other neurological device companies at the time. And I think what really was the key inspiration was, could we merge these two fields? Because one of the biggest problems in neurological medicine, whether it's psychiatry or neurology, at any age spectrum, any of those conditions that fall in those buckets, is the experience of getting medicine is horrible, right? Super stigmatized. Drug medicines come with tons of side effects, so people are very scared about them, or they resist them entirely, or they use them, but they have dose limiting toxicity, or people are left to like try these really crude devices or behavioral therapy approaches, which feel like the dark ages. So what I think inspired us most was, okay, if we could build a real medical product, but fully leverage the beauty of, for lack of a better term, the iPhone, right? The fully leverage the beauty of smartphones and everything it could do. You could have, for the first time, a neurological therapeutic that people actually wanted to use, that they were excited to use, and that could transform their life, not just by treating the disease, but actually by engaging patients in a brand new way.
And another thing I love about it is, especially nowadays, you always have your cell phone, so you never forget your medicine.
Right.
If you're using Endeavor, OTC, or even RX, you almost always have your medicine with you, which is so cool. As somebody who I'm a type 1 diabetic myself, and have to carry insulin with me 24/7, and that can be an issue. Just simply of being a man and trying to remember your stuff all the time. So that's another thing that's so cool to me. And my next question is, how is Endeavor different from, I guess I'm sure some people have the question of, okay, well, what makes this different than Temple Run on my phone? What is this, or how is this different than other apps and other video games?
Sure. So to understand this, you got to really zoom back to what are we trying to treat, and what's the core technology. So um, the area we decided to focus on for this first of its kind technology, and now again we have to rewind, right? Because now you fast forward to 2023, 2024, and there's now like dozens of digital therapeutic companies out there. There were none in 2010, 2011. So there was really nothing that was a template for what does it look like to build a therapeutic that's delivered in an app or through your phone. The area we decided to focus on, and we wanted to make a truly amazing medicine company out of this, was cognitive functioning, right? We felt like within the neurology and psychiatry fields, one of the biggest issues was that cognitive functioning, so how well you're paying attention or processing information, how well the brain's working on like a very minute by minute basis, or frankly, millisecond by millisecond basis, that's actually what had not been solved in neurology medicine, right? So most traditional medications will work on some of the other symptoms and the other circuitry in the brain, like some of the overt symptoms of conditions. But what's actually happening, like very quickly for us to become humans and interact in the world, there are parts of the brain, such as the anterior cingulate cortex, and I'll come back to that, but this part of the midline prefrontal cortex, which actually controls how to process the world around us and basically allocate our attention in complex environments, that is really inaccessible with molecular means. What we found, however, is that some amazing researchers who had been studying how to activate those parts of the brain through sensory stimulus or motor stimulus, you actually could do it. So these areas of the brain that you can't specifically target with molecules, with drugs, actually could be targeted by sensory stimulus. And so what makes this product different, and this product platform, because we've built a number of products off of this core technology, is that it's based on a decade's worth of research and patented technology, that it's a very specific way that the sensory and motor challenges are delivered to you, that it reproducibly and very strongly activates that part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. We've published this now in 6 different peer-reviewed publications in kids all the way up to 50 plus adults, showing that this part of the brain we can repetitively and predictably activate, and that correlates with major gains in things like attention and processing of the world around people. So what's different here is that this is a patented way. If you play other video games, you might 1% of the time by chance activate the part of the brain you want, but you're just activating a lot of stuff in the brain. This is a very targeted, very specific and patented way to make sure that every moment of the experience, yes, you're playing a game, but every moment of the experience, you are activating the part of the brain you need to control attention functioning. And so in that way, it's a really exquisite piece of technology that is frankly just as standardized and controlled as a medicine. I say this all the time to people. When you get a medicine and a pill, that medicine needs to have specifications. You need to know that every molecule in that pill is exactly the same, and every pill contains exactly the same moles or grams of that molecule. It's the same way here with our technology. Is we have a specification of the exact algorithm that we've patented, have taken through clinical trials, and we know that that's what's getting delivered every single minute to a patient, and that's what's activating their brain.
And actually, Endeavor is the first prescription video game to receive FDA clearance, correct? Is that correct?
It's the first and only still. So yeah, that's right.
So,
In 2020, received FDA authorization as a treatment for children with ADHD. Just recently, a few weeks back, actually, it received its second FDA authorization, which is now for teens, because we have clinical trials in teens. So now it's authorized for 8-year-olds all the way up through 17-year-olds as a prescription product. And of course, with EndeavorOTC, that adults can now buy directly without a prescription on the App Store. That is the first video game that's directly treating attention function and has clinical data behind it, that is non-prescription. So we like to do a lot of firsts at Akili.
yeah, it's truly very impressive. So I know one thing that Endeavor focuses on is the focus score. How does that help people track their progress while using the app?
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up. That is an innovation that is years in the making. So focus score, I'll define it for everyone, and then I can go back on sort of what that is. So focus score is a cognitive metric. It's a metric in the product that you get after your first couple minutes of play. And so we like to give it as part of the first on-ramp between the free trial and your first therapeutic sessions, that you get a score that actually tells you, and it's normalized on a scale of 0 to 100. It tells you how well you're focusing based on all the measurements we have in the app. Now, what's interesting about this, so a couple things. This is only today available in EndeavorOTC. Okay, so that's because that's where it's been most heavily validated. So we're a medicine science company. We want to make sure everything we do is heavily validated. So this is available today for people that buy EndeavorOTC on either the Apple App Store or Google Play. And you get, in your first couple sessions, you get a focus score, and then you get a trajectory that says, if you keep playing, here's the confidence interval of how much you'll improve that. When I say it's a couple years in the making, this really demonstrates the power of digital treatments. So think about traditional treatments. You take a pill, and then you kind of hope you get better, right? And you try to notice symptoms in real life.
Wait and see. Yeah.
In our case, we actually not only give you stimulus every second of the experience, we actually measure 30 frames a second of everything you're doing in the app. And after completing clinical trials that encompass thousands of patients, we were then able to finally build a composite score of the gameplay data itself. So as you're using the treatment, and there are sessions in there that are really meant to more assess you instead of treat you, we're able to distill out from that a metric that that is actually cross-validated across hundreds of participants, that is a first principles based way, meaning based on the cognitive science. It is a metric of attention, but the cooler part and way better is that it's based on our clinical trials of hundreds of participants, that improvements in that focus score directly correlate with improvements in clinical functioning and symptoms. So this score is not only the first, weight number analogy for the brain, right? We don't have anything like this for the brain. For the body, you have a scale, you have weight, you have, blood glucose, you have, your hemoglobin A1C. We don't have anything like this for the brain. So this is the first clinically validated score of your attention functioning, how well you're focusing and paying attention. And we have the data that says, at least for people with ADHD, if you improve the score, you have a high chance of improving the rest of your symptoms in daily life. Yeah, so it's something I'm really proud of. It's why we needed to build ourselves as both a medical company, but also a tech company, is because this is the result of, a whole team of data scientists working for years on building a score that not only is cool, but actually works and is validated.
Yeah, that is, it really is. It is to the definition of groundbreaking, which I love so much. And with this generation coming up, is video games and being on your cell phones is so, man, it's just when I heard about Akili's story and your story, I was like, wow, we've got to get this, we've got to get Eddie on, we've got to talk about this. This is so cool. My wife's a pharmacist.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, baby, I said, you're not even gonna believe it. I'm interviewing Eddie Martucci next week. I said, have you ever heard of EndeavorRx and Endeavor OTC? She's like, no. Pulled the website up and showed her, and she was really blown away by it. And it's a very, very, very cool product. So my next question is, Akili's values include, obviously challenging the status quo, combining top science with entertainment, and kind of creating that engaging user experience. What impact do you hope to achieve by kind of redesigning and redelivering this new medicine?
Yeah, I probably could fit that into two categories. So when I started the company, there were two things that I really would hope to leave as a legacy here, and I think I still feel that today, even though I was our first and only CEO for about 11 years, and then I recently transitioned to chair the board. But every one of my years, leading the company, it still was in our ethos. So I think it still maintains today, and that's number one. We are a medicine company, and therefore the patients that we are looking to serve, that we run clinical trials with, that we're trying to help give a new treatment for, we want to see improvements in their life, right? We want to see quality of life improvements. That's it. And we want to have high trust and credibility and confidence that we're doing that. And so in my view, that has to be your number one guiding North Star for any medicine company. I think in this world of like med tech and health tech, sometimes people get told, no, you got to think about yourself like a consumer company. But truly, the guiding North Star for us is like, are we helping people, and are we helping more people more dramatically every day? So that's number one. And so for us, that started with children with ADHD, and then teens and adults with ADHD. And now we're serving all of those populations on the market. And then we've run clinical trials and shown positive benefits in adults with depression, even adults who have suffered from COVID infection and now have long COVID or COVID brain fog. And so those populations we're looking forward to bring products to as well. But the second, and this is unique, I think, compared to a typical medicine company. Like I said, when we founded the company, there were no companies like this.
Right.
There now are. And we've also now treated tens of thousands of patients in the market. And one of the things I'm most proud of is we hear from patients every day that not only have we helped their symptoms, but we've empowered them in a new way. Because what has happened historically with medicine for the brain is you're almost like, I don't want to say ashamed to take it, but you take it as a, like all of us take these medicines hoping to be done with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
hoping that we can take as little as possible and we can take a pill and forget it. And I don't really want to think about that I'm on medicine.
Yeah.
I think one of the unintended consequences of that, that's positive. We need medicine in society, certainly for the brain, right? Neurological medicine has transformed society. But one of the unintended consequences is that I think psychologically, that makes us almost feel like we have this crutch that we're hoping helps us, and then we never want to think about it again.
Yeah.
The difference with these interactive medicine products like the Endeavor products and like other companies out there is you have to put in work and you have to actually bring yourself to the table every day and put in work. But the difference is you're actually treating yourself.
Right.
You're getting the benefits because you're putting in work. So, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get the benefits. But when you get the benefits, it's because you have sat there, you've done 20 or 30 minutes a couple days a week, and it's hard sometimes, right? You're modifying your brain. So in many ways, we get what has never really been thought of in medicine, but is absolutely thought of in like the physical fitness world, is when
Right.
you make a change with yourself, you have a pride, right?
Yeah.
People are like, I did this. I sat with a 12-year-old once in front of our entire company at an offsite because we brought an early patient from EndeavorRx. And I said, hey, did Endeavor make you a better student? Because he was getting A's now. And he said, like, without pause, he said, no, I did that. He's like,
Yeah.
because I worked on this and it like overwhelmed me. And so I know that's a super long answer, but
Oh.
when you say what are we hoping to change in the world, I think it's that. I think it's
Yeah.
that, in some cases, we don't have to be ashamed of or just tolerate medicine. We can actually be proud that we accomplished something with our medicine. And so when I hear adults or kids talk about, hey, that I'm paying attention better, and by the way, I've never felt so empowered in my life. Like I feel like a person who has better confidence and self-worth and all that. Like, man, that's a double whammy that few people I think get to experience. And so I'm hoping that Akili and other companies that are creating these digital interactive treatments really lean into that. And I think it's something that can really change our mindset of how we think about medicine for the future.
Yeah. I really love that. I absolutely love that answer. How and leading into that, how do you look at the future of digital therapeutics and especially in kind of treating that in cognitive impairments? How do you see the future, 10 years from now, 15 years from now going? Like what's the next in digital? What else can we
Sure.
what else can we treat, do we think?
Yeah, yeah. The one thing I could say is it is pretty clear at this point that it's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff in the medical system, like mostly dealing with insurance and insurer coverage. Like that's kind of the next big hurdle, and that might take a year or more than 1 year to knock down. But what is very clear is, there are a number of products. I think there's 7 or 8 products on the market that are clinically validated digital therapeutics, probably more if you go beyond those that are FDA authorized. Um, I actually happen to sit on the board. I'm a founding board member of the Digital Therapeutic Alliance, so I get a view of all the products coming, and there are literally like 100 or more that are coming in the next few years. So when you look at products like the Endeavor products, which have now treated like over 50,000 people, and then there's more than, there's like say 10 or more products like that on the market or getting to that point, and then there's 100 in the hopper that are coming to market. It's pretty clear that this is a wave that you're not going to stop, right? And that
Mhm.
people want these products. Um, what's coming is interesting. So for most of the life of Akili, I'd say Akili was on an island in that the vast majority of products were, I'll call them like versions of therapists on your phone, right? So the vast majority of digital therapeutics were like behavioral therapy techniques that were put on your phone that could help you self-manage a condition. Those are great. But Akili was always a bit different in that it was like futuristic medicine, right? Something that feels like entertainment, but is actually treating you.
Yeah.
What I think I'm seeing with the next generation of products coming is a lot more of that kind of eye-opening magical technology that really just blows you away and makes you go, whoa, holy crap, I didn't think that was possible. So for instance, there's a product called Luminopia 1, which treats amblyopia or lazy eye, but it is doctoring cartoons in a VR headset. So it's changing the input of cartoons, but you're essentially watching TV to get your medicine.
Wow,
That's incredible.
that is
There are products coming that are different types of light stimulus and sound stimulus that you could be watching a light show, or you could be essentially like listening to certain types of beats, and that's going to treat you. And it's always been the stuff of like science fiction,
yeah,
but it's
truly.
actually happening. There's a product from a company called MetaRhythms called In Tandem, which is for people dealing with stroke and walking issues, gait problems, and they're now listening to music that is being altered to sync with their steps to actually improve their walking post, stroke, and then eventually Parkinson's. Like, this is where this field is going, is that I think in
Yeah.
10, man, when you say 10 years, that's a long time. I think I
True.
think we're all going to have products in our household, on our phones, on our body that are digital ways of helping our disease that go right alongside our medications that we take.
Yeah,
And I think it's going to feel very natural. It's not natural today. The Endeavor OTC users downloading the product today on the App Store, they're still early adopters,
yeah,
but
definitely
I think it's going to be
pioneers
super. I think exactly. I think in a couple of years it's going to be very natural for anyone with most medical conditions to be using a digital product along with their pill or infusion.
for sure. Can you share any upcoming projects or developments that Akili might be, if you're able to? Obviously, if you can. Any peek behind the curtain at Akili with our audience?
Unfortunately, we're a public company now, so we're listed
You
on the
can.
Nasdaq, and that has totally changed the type of stuff we're able to say. So I can't give any specifics. What I can say is we've always envisioned ourselves as a multi-product company. We've started that with the work across age ranges. So EndeavorRx for kids and teens, EndeavorOTC for adults. Those products are starting to diverge. So every new update to those products kind of customizes that for the population. But like I said, um, we have data in depression, in COVID fog, in multiple sclerosis, and we're committed to building a product platform where we can be treating many conditions down the road. So without being too specific on timing or roadmap or anything like that, it is still our vision to be able to bring products across different markets. And some of that work we're working on the regulatory front. We've published some of that work, clinical trials, and then some of the stuff, won't be able to talk about it until there are updates there. But suffice to say, our small but mighty team is very busy.
Yeah, definitely. And wrapping up here, Eddie, given the very unique nature of what Akili does and what your work is, what insights would you offer to others aiming to kind of revolutionize the healthcare delivery in the healthcare industry, like you guys, like Akili?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a couple. So the first is I do think it's critical to not cut corners on the clinical trial side. I mean, I think I get it in this environment. Cash is hard to come by, capital is hard to come by. Most of my career so far has been someone that has to raise money. So I get it. It's hard, and it's harder now than it was a decade ago. But it's very, very clear that the products that will win and that will scale to patients and see the light of day are those that have incredible clinical data, right? It's the only way. And actually, I mentioned that there's 100 or more products coming. The more products are in a marketplace, even more clinical data will differentiate, right? Because then you'll have a lot of options, and the only way to know the products you can trust will be those that have invested in really good clinical trials and proven their outcomes. So I
Very true.
always tell people, number one, it's to, really invest in the early days in the clinical trial work and don't skimp there. I think the second is really listen to users, right? So one of the beauties of interactive products is you can actually do user research early on. And I mean like real user research, put products in their hands, think about what are the features they like and don't like. Um, you know, think about the Ford and buggy or car analogy, you don't have to build for them, but like, what are the things, how do they want to experience products in the future? Um, and and I think that's really important because sometimes we as innovators can get blinders on, which is like, this is our roadmap on paper, and here's all the steps I'm going to do to bring it to market. But it is really important to be constantly updating um, how you think users will respond to things. And then the last thing, and we are a case study, and I'm a case study in this, fortunately or unfortunately, is I think you have to be flexible on the business model. So what we have seen, unfortunately, in the digital health world over the last couple of years is businesses that had a singular business model that was capital intensive and had kind of rigid investments around that model. When the model doesn't go as planned in a tough economic environment, those companies essentially have to call it quits. And so what we've done is we've really built ourselves with the ability to be flexible. It's one reason why we heard loud and clear from adult patients with ADHD that they do not want to go to their doctors. They don't want to spend that time. And by the way, insurance isn't covering it anyways. And
Yes.
so we pivoted really quickly and we said, great, for the adult market, we're actually going to do an OTC model. And we had that inherent flexibility built into our thinking and our mindset as a business. And I think in these kind of times where it's unstable times economically, which, and from a medical systems perspective. And so you've got to have that ability to be flexible because the way you chart out your business on paper is almost never going to actually happen that way. So sometimes you get lucky if you're rigid, but more often than not, I think it is a handicap. So I always tell people, look, believe in your idea, but don't believe in too specific of your idea. Be flexible and,
Yeah,
and keep figuring out a way to make it work.
definitely. So one more time for all of our listeners and anybody who's interested in Endeavor. I know the OTC product is available on Apple and
That's
Google
right.
Play stores, correct? And how would just maybe just a brief example, if my mom is watching, how do we go about obtaining the RX Endeavor RX?
Yeah. So I'll mention both of them two different
Yeah.
ways. Sometimes, so yes, on the EndeavorOTC, which again is about $25 a month, and people can purchase directly if they have ADHD, and they're adults, um, or attention problems that they're concerned about. You can go to the App Store, the Google Play, and just search EndeavorOTC, or you can actually go to EndeavorOTC.com, and that has all the information about the product and links to the download. Um, for EndeavorRx, we have a product site, EndeavorRx.com. So it gives you all the information, including how to talk about it with your doctor, including information. We don't have a large sales force. We had a sales force for a period of time, but we cut that back because it's such a big cost. So some doctors are aware of this. It is being prescribed in every state in the country, but awareness is still not saturated. And so what we have is a number of resources on EndeavorRx.com that shows you how to bring this up with your doctor. And then the best way to talk about it is you can either go to your own doctor and bring that information. And some doctors will have heard about it and some won't, but they'll really want that information because they want to know it's a product they can trust. And then we do have, if you don't have a doctor of your own, we do have a telemedicine link right on our site that you
Awesome.
can, it's not our own doctors. We want to stay arm's length. And so you can get prescribed through that functionality as well. So we're trying to be flexible for people and give them as many ways as possible to get good treatments.
I love that. Great. I appreciate your insight. It was a real pleasure speaking with you today, Eddie. Thank you for sharing your insights on the transformative work that Achilles is doing, and I really loved learning more about the potential that you guys have and the potential in this digital space. Um, I wish you nothing but continued success in changing the status quo and developing more of these innovative treatments. We will have links to the EndeavorRx site and links to both the Apple and Google Play stores below. So please, guys, Please check these out. This is great work that Eddie and Akili is doing. But thank you again, Eddie, for your time.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It was a fun conversation.
Thanks. Bye.